Hi everyone, Mark here. Just wanted to introduce the interview that I did with Lance Morginn, the co-founder and president of Blockchain Intelligence Group. Really good interview, but I have to say I was late. I couldn't get my microphone to work. I couldn't get my camera to work, so I ended up doing it on my laptop camera, which is really, really terrible. But the interview's still really, really good, and I really enjoyed speaking to Lance. So hopefully it works. And if you liked it, please give a like and subscribe, and hopefully you find something useful from it.
So, Lance, thank you very much for joining me. President, co-founder of Blockchain Intelligence Group. First off, could I ask you the history of the company, really? One thing that's not widely reported is how the company got started. You've obviously got two halves to your company. Were they always two halves to the same company, or did you collect as you went along?
Yes, well, we did collect, so to speak. So the company started back in 2014 when one of my former business associates from a previous company that I co-founded back in '99, who was a search engine specialist, designing search engines back then, came to me and said, "Listen, the crypto space is growing at a rapid pace.
Mhm.
You know, reference to Bitcoin, it's growing every 10 minutes. When you have a database growing at that speed and scale, search and analytics are going to be a necessity." And my background, I've been in tech since 1994 and a serial entrepreneur and started a lot of companies. More than I'd like to count for, but all those, I guess, are lessons to be learned, right?
Yeah.
The real hard knocks of street learning. But I had been following Bitcoin since 2013 and saw uh, some different technologies and was looking at ways around mining and improvements of mining, which I didn't really follow through too much. I made an investment into one company. Unfortunately, there was no computer chips that could run it today, so it kind of fell
Yeah.
flat. And so yes, when my associate approached me, I said, "Yeah, this is something that I'd love to get involved with." So we started assembling a business plan in 2015, and started assembling a team. And in 2016 is when we put out an announcement having the ability to look into cryptocurrency transactions. And law enforcement was our biggest respondent, so that's how we knew where to focus our attention.
Okay.
Uh, our first client happened to be Homeland Security, and the gentleman that executed that purchase order was Robert Whitaker, who now, of
Ah,
course, works
okay.
for
He's the
us.
COO.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so as we were building out, and there, the landscape. There's probably about 15 of us. Some smaller players that do just very niche stuff. So you could add up to maybe 20, but
Uh-huh.
really there's about four or five main names globally. And being that a couple of them had started in 2013, bringing Robert on was my way of making up for lost time.
Yeah.
The data is out there and purchasable to a certain extent, for some things relevant to the dark markets, and we did that through partnerships. But it was more making sure that we're building a tool that had features of value and not building things that we thought were of value, and wasting that time. So Robert's been a tremendous help, and as we've been building this out, we looked at the value of being public.
Hmm.
Um, we looked at going down the ICO road. I mean, we had the capabilities of doing that, but we didn't want to compromise the pricing to our clients by having a market that sort of dictates what that looks
Yeah.
like. So we chose to stay away from that. I mean, I've been an officer and a director of 10 plus public companies, and same with a multitude of our directors. And we really understood that space, and thought, you know what, that's a better route to go. And it it changes the kind of opportunities that will come
Hmm.
to you. And so, being that Netcoins was in our backyard, we knew the team. We were really impressed with what they were putting together. Um, and that when you're public, you're running two companies. You're running the public markets, and you're running a private entity,
Yeah.
sort of, so to speak. And um, and so by bringing them in, it allowed me to focus more on really building blockchain intelligence group and what it has. And Mark was very well suited for being able to convey a bigger vision and be able
Mhm.
to sort of look at other opportunities. And Mitch is a tremendous entrepreneur great background, started a multitude of companies, the world's first Bitcoin ATM, bought and built and sold an exchange previously. So very confident in their capabilities and skill sets, and being that they're in our backyard also was very helpful.
Yeah.
And it was complementary to what we're doing. Listen, they're all about crypto and regulation first, and we're all about bringing crypto mainstream via our services and empowering the regulators to be able to create regulation and craft language, and give tools to law enforcement to do their job, and give the financial industry the ability to meet regulation as it comes online. And so it was a really sort of natural fit for us. So that's sort of how we got to um, two divisions,
Okay.
and the road where we're at today.
Makes total sense. Yeah, great. And in terms of partnerships, you seem to be going through rapid partnership development recently. You've got DeFi Ventures, which I must admit I couldn't find a lot of information on. You've got Uncharted Software that they seem to be doing a lot in the GPS space, a lot of law enforcement type strategy. You've got Brune Capital, the vault essentially. How are they all fitting together? Are you seeing this as almost like a mergers and acquisition type expansion, or are you looking very much to partner to expand your reach?
It's kind of like lining up the chessboard. We see pieces that are going to be needed as banks come online, and sort of the way that assets are held. And so, particularly with Brain, we've looked at different custodial solutions, and really liked some of the functionality that they had. They also happen to be Canadian. Um, so at times we like to support our fellow
Of
Canadians,
course,
but
yeah.
of course, the product and service still needs to deliver. And being that we have some quite deep relationships with different agencies in the U.S., and when you get into seize coins, they need a place to be able to put those. So one of the components on the chessboard was a custodial solution. And then also the advantage that we've got compared to some of the other operators is that we also have net coins that can provide liquidity upon sale, instead of going through an auction, which is more the usual route that they choose to go. And of course, then there's fees, extra fees, and less
Yeah.
money, etc. So we're looking for relationships that fill out that chessboard. And from our development standpoint, we want to make sure we stay focused, true to the core of what we have to build out. And the visual forensic side of things is um, quite a bit of development that needs to be done in order to, not only fleshing out further functionality and features, but also adding in new coins, and then the whole compliance side is a lot of focus and attention. And so we didn't want to go and build those things in house, even though we have the capabilities. We want to make sure that we're continuing to enhance what we've got as a core asset, and try to make it as the leading product in the world. And so, the Uncharted, they have a platform that's already servicing three-letter agencies, and the data that we can add to their offering um, really further strengthens their positioning
Mhm.
within their client base, and what they can achieve. And at the end of the day, we're a data company. We're a big data company. We're sitting on just under 1 trillion data points, and growing every day, of course. And so not only selling that data to ourselves in a sense through our own UI, but to other partners like Uncharted.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of a strategy both on what we see as needs when we're going in and talking with banks, and the other VASPs that we have, and just making sure that we can show them that you don't have to do a lot of homework. We've been in this space for a long time, and
Mhm. Mhm.
a lot of the industry views us as thought leader already. So here's the homework we've done. Here's why we've selected this partner. Here's the other ones that we looked at, and just it further positions us as the company to go with.
Okay. And how much of your business is made up of selling data to almost middlemen or middle platforms, and how much is going direct to the agencies and the banks and having those one-to-one relationships?
The data side is something more new. We've really been focusing more on our SaaS product,
Mhm.
but as we've been rounding things off on a number of different fronts. People have been coming to us asking for the data, and so that's really starting to pick up, and I see that that'll grow. But currently, I'd say it's more about 10 to 15% of our overall
Okay.
client base is on the data side.
Okay. And the law enforcements, and you mentioned banks quite a lot. Is Clue very much isolated to law enforcement? BitRank is the bank-facing side of the business. Is it that simple, or is there overlap in between the two?
There is overlap. I mean, for law enforcement, for them to get a risk score behind an address just gives them a quick snapshot of
Mhm.
what kind of rabbit hole they might be going down. So it is helpful to them. But on the banks, exchanges, and ATMs side of things, it's they predominantly use both. It depends. If their compliance is done in-house, they'll use both services. So BitRank would be more sort of the frontline defense. And then when they need to
Yep.
dive in deeper, they would then use Clue. Also responding to subpoenas, those kinds of things. Clue is very helpful in shortening that time frame and being able to turn around the requested information. But if they're outsourcing their compliance, then it would be that outsourcing firm that would be using Clue to take those escalated cases.
Yep.
So it just depends on environment.
Okay, makes sense. And taking BitRank as an example, you started with Bitcoin. Obviously, you've I think recently implemented Ethereum. Um, how easy is a technology like that to, let's say Dogecoin is becoming more and more popular at the moment. How easy are the technologies to kind of lift and shift as you expand and more cryptos become more relevant?
Right. Yeah. What we've on just to the first part, Bitcoin, Ethereum, ERC20, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Litecoin, all of those have been in BitRank now for some time. Um, it comes down to the chain and what is the back end code. You know, if it's a fork of something that we're already supporting, then it's a little bit of an easier road than if it's a whole new chain.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so it's yeah, it really comes down to that. And even if it was a fork, there can still be some further development time required versus another version of that fork,
Mhm.
because depending upon how they've modified that code. But obviously, no matter what, if it is a fork of something we've already had, then it is going to be a little bit easier for us to bring in.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, obviously, BitRank is, let's say I wanted to buy a Tesla and Tesla wanted, obviously now I can't with Bitcoin, but let's say once upon a time I did. Who would be the client in that scenario? Who does BitRank protect? Does it protect purely Tesla? Does it protect a bank somewhere? Who is the actual client?
It would be Tesla directly. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, they would be the ones that right now there is no obligation on a retailer to vet funds. And but I see as time goes that retailers most likely, if they're taking larger um, ticketed items via crypto, they will have a requirement to do uh, know your transaction, know the source of funds verification. Um, Otherwise, really, criminals could just go around
Yeah.
freely, just never, just keep it all in the retail world and never really convert it to fiat or anything else. But it's still early days in the scheme of things. Regulators are still setting up things in certain countries, and it's come quite a long ways in others. So I do though see down the road that retailers that are doing transactions of, let's say, more than $10,000 would need to use BitRank or service like to be able to know the source of funds
Yeah.
and know what if they've been involved in nefarious activity.
And obviously, your company, one of your main focuses, particularly through Netcoins, is being compliant and talking with regulators. How much? I think we've heard a lot about Netcoins and trying to become regulated or regulatory compliant. How is that dialogue helping with with Big as a whole?
With Big Digital as a whole,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, I mean,
Or
having blockchain intelligence group definitely, I think, strengthens those conversations just because we understand uh, the other side of the coin, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and conversations with the regulators here are going well. They I think that they appreciate that we have this background, this knowledge, and are building the tools to empower both regulators and law enforcement. So, um, I think that we've had quite a few regulators in Canada go through our training, our CCI training,
Hmm.
and so we are being viewed as the thought leaders, not only in Canada, but US and overseas in the APEC region and Europe. Regulators from multiple countries and continents are going through that training. And, that's why we continue to add subsequent modules and try to keep on top of the most recent type of nefarious
Mm.
measures that are taking place.
Do you see it evolve a lot? Do people become smarter in the way that they're trying to cheat the system?
Sure, sure, naturally.
Mm.
Yep, yep. But the one thing about blockchain is it makes a great witness, and so it's there for all of time.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Um, and just going back to Clue for a second, you mentioned Robert already, who worked for Homeland Security. You recently hired William J. Callahan III. Was it just for his name, or but
Right.
he worked for the DEA. Are
Correct.
you are you building a very strong network through the US, or do you see global aspirations in talking to global law enforcement? How are you doing there?
Yeah. So Bill comes from a sort of a different area of government in the way that where the position he was in, and he he's been a strong supporter of ours, both on the training side and the tools before we brought him on. And we just think he's a great value add to the team. He's very complementary to what Robert has brought to the table, but sort of two different sides based on U.S. government.
Mhm.
Um, and and having those people on board or gentlemen on board helps us when we're going into foreign countries. Robert was the special agent that U.S. government flew to foreign government agencies to train their law enforcement on how the
Okay.
U.S. government performs cryptocurrency investigations. So Robert has a Rolodex, and we've definitely been using that in displaying what we can do as capabilities, but also just talking about crypto in general and nefarious activity in general. Yeah, we are. We have law enforcement clients outside of North America, and we continue to look to grow that base. And by having a couple of senior guys on our team, definitely helps.
Do you think it's just the beginning in terms of law enforcement? Is it something that's new, or is it something that is quite widely known now in law enforcement communities?
I think that the pressure is coming where this is a tidal wave that's not going away, and that budgets every year that goes by, more and more funds are being allocated to this area. And the U.S., I think, being the big brother of the world, was the first to sort of jump on the bandwagon of making sure that they had personnel in these different agencies to be able to look at this type of activity. But other foreign government agencies are um, really starting to follow suit and and hire people that can fill these seats to use services like ours.
Okay. And in terms of your offering at the moment, in terms of your product base, is that something which will continue to expand in the future, or do you feel like you've got your core and you're just going to roll out what you have? I'm asking if you have any
Oh,
secret
there's
developments that you want to tell me about.
right, right. Well, what I can tell you is that we do see things that are a need to the market that like I would say right now we've got a good uh, product offering, and we solve the problem of being able to look into these kinds of things. But there are other, I mean, if you look at the DEX and DeFi space, what's going on there, um, there are things that we see that we want to build in, and will that will help both law enforcement and compliance officers meet their roles and responsibilities. And yeah, obviously, I don't want to give away too much of the battle plan,
Yeah.
but I think that there will always be things that need to be added. I don't think that'll go away, um, but I, well, I mean, even NFTs are something that could be a great mechanism for money laundering.
True. Yeah.
So, but how do you tackle that? And from an analytics standpoint, can we really provide the visibility necessary to determine that something nefarious is going on versus just a sale of an NFT? So our research teams are always looking at the latest things that are going on and providing feedback. And then we've got,
Mhm.
of course, our clients that are showing us things that what they're seeing. So there will always be development, but I think we have a very solid, strong offering. The feedback that we're getting is that very easy platform to use, very intuitive, um, makes onboarding easy, um, and um, and that's something that we've focused hard on, is to make sure that it's clean and something that people just get attached to and won't want to leave.
Great. And your last couple of communications, well, firstly, I love the fact that you're a really communicative company. You talk about everything. You're very open, very honest. This interview is a major example. How does that fit into the ethos of the company, firstly? And then in terms of revenue, you might not want to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
We've heard a lot about netcoins. There's a lot of data, a lot of publishing around netcoins and how the revenue's growing. How do you see the two sides of the business growing over the next few years? And will we start hearing more about blockchain intelligence and their revenue at some point in the near future?
Right. So transparency is something that we want to be, I think, as clear and open as possible. There's always some limitation being public as to what we can disclose. We got to make sure we use platforms that offer a fair distribution.
Mhm.
So there is that always has to be taken into consideration. But um, we are definitely here to build something of real substance and make put our flag in the air and say that we're a solid, reputable, transparent organization that really has strong beliefs in doing the right thing and trying to make sure that we're always on the right side of the law. And so no one likes lack of communication, and we try to be as communicative as possible. Um, Sometimes it just comes down to timing. Sometimes we would like to get things out a little bit sooner, but we can't. But by no means are we ever trying to hold back anything. And when it comes to revenue, I mean, Blockchain Intelligence Group, on our side, is we just recently brought on a head of marketing and communications. We've now brought on customer success. We're expanding our sales team. We're really coming into our own and sort of getting to the next stage of growth. And reputation's been really key to us. A lot of our business has come through referrals. We haven't been taking investors' money and spending it on platinum sponsorships that cost $100,000, because at the end of the day, it's either the investor or the customer that has to pay that. But yet we do want to get our name out, but we wanted to make sure that when people come to use the tools, that they really do deliver on all aspects of their needs, and to continue that organic growth that has been
Yep.
taking place. And so I think, based on where we're at and the feedback that we're getting and what we have now implemented as further chess pieces on our board, yes, I completely expect to see a lot more things coming out from our side,
Great.
and hopefully most of that translates into revenue. I mean, some of them are partnerships and sort of further pawns on the board that will take a little bit longer in order to yield fruit. But if we look 3 to 5 years out, they're strategic moves right now to make sure that we own that sector or that space versus our competitors.
Okay. Excellent. I've gone over my time. One more question, if I may, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Sure.
Um, we've recently seen a huge explosion in the number of private companies that are owning, particularly Bitcoin. Um, where do you see the opportunity there from a private company perspective?
In holding Bitcoin, what's the advantage
Well,
for them?
for you as a company, you're obviously talking to banks and law enforcement agencies a lot. Do you see any opportunity more in the private company space?
Well, I guess to the extent of being able to know that the funds that they're purchasing, that Bitcoin that they're buying, if it happened to not be through an exchange, which then puts some of the onus on them, versus through outside of exchange transactions. A whale sells his 1,000 Bitcoin or 5,000 Bitcoin. Um, you know, Using our services to know that those funds have been vetted and cleared, and there is a market there, but obviously their transaction volume would be very minimal.
Yeah,
So I don't see that being a real focus for us. But there is value to them in using services like ours just to have that peace of mind. I mean, Kevin O'Leary states, I only want to take freshly minted coins. I don't want any blood coins, these kinds of things. So people with that kind of mindset can use services like ours to be able to have that peace of mind that they have done that background check. Um, yeah, so they can be a market for us, but it's so small compared to
it's not a focus.
it's. Yeah, I mean, they can find us great, but it's not a focus at all in the scheme of things.
Okay. I'm really grateful that you took my call, Lance, and thank you very much. And hope it all goes well.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all your support and all the supporters watching.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, sir. All
Bye,
the best.
Lance.